So hi, Gui. Hello,
Hello.
everybody. Hi, everybody. We've just started our App Clips webinar. Let's wait for all the participants to join us. In the meantime, let me introduce you to your speaker. It's my pleasure to have you here with us, Gui. How is everything with you? How are you doing, first of all?
Hi, I'm doing really great. I can't wait to show people a little bit more about app clips. It's something I'm very passionate about, as you can probably tell by me doing a workshop on it. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this.
Thank you so much. We're so excited about it as well. So if you don't know Gui, which I'm sure you do actually, Gui manages a team of developers building an e-commerce app for the Brazilian market. He's also the developer behind apps such as AirBuddy, the WDC app for Mac OS, and the iOS app Chibi Studio, other than building the Apple's platforms. So Gui is also a co-host to the Stack Trace podcast, so make sure you listen to that as well. And he obviously speaks at conferences around the world and loves to share his information and ideas on his Twitter and his blog. So we are very glad that you're here. I will definitely share the links to your Twitter and to your blog as well. In the meantime, I'd also kind of like to share some of our important links to our Twitter, to our YouTube, to our webinars page, and our blog, so that everyone can keep up to date. There are also a little bit of extra info that I thought that we could share with the audience, but we might want to wait a little bit because there is still a few minutes until the session starts, and we don't want to have anyone miss out on all the infos. So I'll also share everything in our chat and then have everyone be able to talk over there with you. One of the things that we will definitely discuss a little bit later when we have more participants already on board is that we'd like to ask everyone to use the Q&A session. Oh, hi, Leonard. So where are you currently based, Gui? Let's talk a little bit about that and how, what's the situation? How did you prepare for this webinar? Have you done this talk before?
Yes, so I'm located in Brazil. It's in an island called Florianopolis. It's southern Brazil.
Mhm.
It's the weather here today is not very nice. That's probably you're noticing that it's a little bit dark here. I have just one light, and yeah, the clouds are moving in. So hopefully we won't have a thunderstorm during the workshop. But I think that should be fine. Yeah, so I have experience of actually shipping an app clip for my app, which you talked about, Chibi Studio. And it was quite a challenge. And I'm going to go into more detail during the workshop because you have a very strict limitation as to how large your package can be because app clips need to be downloaded really quickly. So being an app that deals with a lot of assets and imagery and the user creates things using the app, visual things, it was quite a challenge to make sure that everything would fit within the app clip. And of course, going through that, I learned a lot about the pros and cons and what you should worry about when creating your app clip. So that's, I think that was my preparation for the workshop because I actually got real world experience with making an app clip and putting it out there. And I've actually given a similar workshop at Try Swift.
Okay.
I've given it twice already. So hopefully this is the best incarnation of the workshop as of yet, because every time I do it, it gets a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this before as well. Preparation is key. So just out of curiosity, what is it that you are working on currently, let's say, on the side apart from work itself, but on a personal note? Are there any exciting projects that you are working on that we're allowed to share?
Well, I've just shipped a huge update of my app AirBuddy yesterday, actually. I had been working on it for a long time, and it's an app for macOS. If you use AirPods with your Mac, it really helps out, and there are some other neat little things in there. I had to learn a lot about how to deal with Bluetooth devices, which can be a challenge. Wireless communications are tricky, to say the least. That's what I'm actually using an Ethernet cable to do this workshop. Yeah, never workshop on Wi-Fi. That's what I like to say. But yeah, that's what I've been working on lately. And of course, at my day job, we've been working on e-commerce for a while, and we actually have some ideas for having an app clip. But as I'm going to talk about during the workshop, there are some challenges, and that's why I think it's going to take a while until everyone can take advantage of app clips.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope that people are going to get excited and use it more after this. I feel like you're able to really let the audience know the nitty gritty things. We actually talked about this a little bit. So do you want to let us know how you're going to structure this webinar? Because I know it's a jam-packed, information-heavy, loads of great intel in 90 minutes. How are we planning on making this digestible to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm going to try my best to fit as much info as possible in these 90 minutes. And throughout the workshop, we're going to have 3 rounds of Q&A. So I'm going to start with some slides that give you an overview of app clips and their limitations and some tips and tricks. And then we're going to have a round of Q&A. Then I'm going to give you a real-life demo of actually taking an existing app and turning its core experience into an app clip. Then after that, we're going to have a second round of Q&A. Then we're going to take the same app and put it on Bitrise for continuous integration so that we can get both our app and our app clip integrated with our CI. And then at the end, we're going to do yet another round of Q&A. So feel free to use the Q&A feature as much as you want and vote on questions, and we'll be answering them throughout the workshop.
Exactly. That sounds great. That's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we mention to everybody is that feel free to use the chat, obviously, right, to all panelists and attendees, and then we can have a nice group conversation there. But because Gui is the only presenter here, he's mainly going to be looking at the Q&A function that you can find at the bottom of your screen. And then that way he's not going to miss any questions that he needs to answer. So as he's mentioned, we're going to have basically 3 different sections for the Q&A itself. So hopefully we will answer everything. I mean, Gui, when I say we, I mean you. So I think it's going to be very, very exciting. We can wait maybe 2 more minutes altogether because we've got a great bunch of people already waiting to listen to you. So if we wait maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, if there's anything that anybody would like to say to Gui or ask him, we can always chat about that for the next minute and a half until we have full house joining.
I actually have a good tip about making the most out of this workshop. There are many workshops where you're asked to follow along with what is going on. I'm not going to ask that here because we have quite a few attendees, and also we have to go through it fairly quickly. But you're going to get an email after the workshop with some links, and one of those links is to the GitHub repo of this app that we're going to be working with. And there's a branch in there, and you're going to get the instructions ready to go so that you can start from the same place that I am going to start here. And this is also recorded, right? So you can go through the recording and then follow along at your own time. So if you want to follow along, you can do that with the recording and this GitHub repo later.
Absolutely. And I think with that note, actually, I'm gonna leave you and yeah, thank you so much for this again, and enjoy and have fun. And I'll just let you take the stage from here onwards. Thank you.
Perfect. So let me share my screen with you, and let's start with our first section, which is going to be all slides, but I promise I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible so that we can get through with the demo. So Let's talk about app clips. You've probably seen this image already. App clips are these small pieces of functionality that you can create based on your app so that users can have access to functionality of your app without having to install the app. So how does that work? If the user is not going to install your app, how are they going to get access to your features? There are a few options as to how app clips can be accessed by the user. They can be accessed in maps as place cards. Also, if someone sends a link on iMessage to someone else, they can also trigger app clips. Of course, they can also work with QR codes. There's also a Safari app banner that can be displayed. So if a user visits your website, there's a banner, and instead of taking you to the App Store, it takes you to an app clip. So the user can have access to your feature right away. You can also use NFC tags, which is really cool. And they also stay on device for a while after the user has installed an app clip. So they can access the app clip again from the recents. There's also this new type of QR code that Apple promised they would let us use starting, quote, later this year, as they usually do at DubDub, and is still not here. So not sure what's going on with that, but apparently you're going to be able to use this new type of QR code as soon as Apple lets you do that. But you can also use just regular QR codes, and they work fine. So let's go through like what the experience is like for a user. So they see an app clip code or a QR code, and this one is an NFC tag. They take their iPhone, they touch the QR code, the NFC tag with their iPhone, or scan the QR code. They see a little pop-up banner. And if they want to, they can tap the button and they are taken to your app clip experience. And then that's it. You can do pretty much whatever you want in your app clip, such as let the user purchase something or register for something and use Apple Pay, signing with Apple, or use your regular payment flow with direct credit card inputs. So that's it. You can also display your banner for your full app. And this is usually done after the user has completed a flow within your app clip so that you can promote your app. So you can convert that app clip user into a full app user. But of course, a big question is, why would we offer this? Why not just have an app as we've been doing for several years? I think this is a great way to showcase your product to users. So you can very quickly get users to experiment with your features or at least one major feature of your product without the need to install your app. Also, many people don't realize, but getting users to install an app is not easy. It's not something that simple. It used to be back in the day, in the beginning of the App Store, pretty much anyone who made an app could become a millionaire overnight, right? Because people were downloading the apps very easily. But these days, there is a lot of friction with actually getting a user to install your app. And also, you can convert users who normally install your app into customers. So if your app is for an e-commerce or some other type of service where the app itself is not what's making you money, so you're not selling the app or features of the app, you can maybe convert people who wouldn't normally install your app to be a customer. So they'll give you some money, of course. So this is also a big point, especially for specific types of apps where the app itself is not the main source of revenue. But of course, you're here to learn how to actually make this happen. So how are we going to go about creating app clips? We're going to be using our good old friend Xcode. And the good news is that app clips are just apps. They are not some weird system extension or app extension or this other modes your app runs in. No, they're just another app, really. That's distributed separately from your main app, but it's associated with your main app. But of course, there are some limitations. So let's talk about these asterisks here. So limitations, the main one, and this is where things tend to get tricky, is that an app clip cannot be more than 10 megabytes in size. And this is after updating and uncompressed. And I'm going to show you later how you can check the size of your app clip. So this is complicated because many of our apps, they use dependencies or they have big resources like big images or even video. And if we have to fit all of that in 10 megabytes, it's not feasible, right? So we have to figure out a way to modularize our code. And if your code is already modularized, then you're going to have an easier time. But yeah, you really need to think about how you're going to fit your app in 10 megabytes. And with my app Chibi Studio, like I was talking about before, I had a great deal of trouble making that happen. I really wanted the users to be able to create their little characters in the app. But for the app to allow that, it has lots of assets. So I spent a lot of time looking at ways to compress those assets and reduce the amount of assets that would be included in the app clip. And also, of course, trimming down on features, while at the same time sharing most of the code with my main app so that I wouldn't have to like maintain through two different implementations of the same thing. And there's actually a post on my blog, and we can definitely send you a link later, where I go in detail about that journey. Also, app clips cannot use HealthKit. So yeah, if your app uses HealthKit and there's no feature of your app that you can expose through an app clip that would be useful without HealthKit, then unfortunately you're out of luck. And also app clips cannot use iCloud or CloudKit. So if you sync using CloudKit or iCloud, you can't sync data from your app clip using iCloud. But of course, you can totally share data between your app and your app clip and your app, so that, let's say the user uses your app clip, they do something, and then later they install your app, you can make that data available in your main app from your app clip. And in the demo, we're going to see how to do that. Also, you can't have in-app purchases. And this is specifically the in-app purchases through StarKit. So when the user unlocks new features through in-app purchases, you can't have that in your app clip, unfortunately. So like I mentioned before, if in-app purchases are the way you get revenue from your app, then maybe an app clip might not be the best idea. But at the same time, an app clip can be a really good way to get users to try out your app, then install your full app, and then, of course, make in-app purchases later. And this is the case for my app that I was talking about. It is based in in-app purchases. Its entire source of revenue is in-app purchases. And we haven't noticed any, we haven't been selling less because we have the app clip. But there are also some special benefits you get from being an app clip. So you can get temporary permission for push notifications to the user. And to do that, you go to your app clip's info.plist, and you set this requests ephemeral user notifications to yes. And then when you ask for authorization, you can use this provisional flag, and the user is not going to be prompted, but you can send notifications for up to 8 hours. If you want to send notifications after 8 hours, then you have to request explicit permission. And this is useful for, say your app clip is like an app where the user can order something from like a restaurant, which is the example we're going to see here. then you can notify them about their order being ready or something else. And later you don't need that permission anymore. So it makes sense that it's limited. Another thing you can do with app clips, since they might be associated with a specific place, so let's say you have a store with multiple locations, you can have a specific app clip for each location. And when the user launches your app clip, you can confirm using core location that the app clip was acquired at the location that you wanted it to be acquired within. So the user can't like use your app clip 500 kilometers away from the location where it's supposed to be used at. Sometimes it might not make sense. And the way it works, again, there's an info.plist key, request location confirmation. You set it to yes. And then when the user scans your QR codes or uses an NFC tag or something else, you can use this activation payload to check that it was acquired within a certain region. And the radius is up to 500 meters that you can verify that this app clip was acquired in that region. So the general flow is you're going to encode your physical location in the app clip URL, and we're going to talk more about URLs later. And this can be like the coordinates of the location right within the URL as query parameters, or it can be some sort of ID that you then pull from your backend to fetch the actual location. Then when the app clip is launched, you're going to get this NS user activity that you can get this activation payload from. Then you can construct a circular region with core location using the coordinates and a radius of up to 500 meters. And then in that payload, there's a method that you can call confirm acquired in that's going to do the matching for you. And it's going to tell you, yes, this is acquired within this region, then you let the user through. And if not, then you block the user or you confirm the location in some other way. And this can all be done without having to request the user for explicit permission to use their location. And this is most of the time completely transparent to the user. So it's really nice. So I mentioned that app clips are just apps, and we've gone through some of the limitations. So here's the general flow, how you create an app clip. You go into Xcode, you add a new target to your iOS app. That's an app clip target. Then you give it a name. And in this case, I'm going to use just clip. This name doesn't really appear to the user. It's just more of an internal name because the app clip is going to use the display name of your app. And as you can see here, you can choose from the full range of technologies that Apple offers. So you can use storyboards if you want. You can use Swift UI. You can use UI kits. You can use the new Swift UI app lifecycle if you want to. It doesn't have to be app delegate based. So there are no limitations as to which coding technology you can use. You can even make your app clip using Objective-C if you want. That's not a problem. And when you create your app clip target, you get this new target within your project, and it has this on-demand install capability here, which is what turns it into an app clip, basically. Something that's probably going to be required if you're going to be sharing code between your app and your app clip is to use conditional compilation. And you can set that up within Xcode in your build settings. There's this other Swift flags if you're using Swift. And you just double click your app clip column here and you put -d and any flag you want. In my case, I'm just calling it app clip. And there you go. Then you can use #if app clip, and this code inside of this block is only going to be compiled when compiling your app clip target. And we're going to see a bunch of this during the demo. Let's talk a little bit more about how app clip invocation works. As I mentioned before, there are all these ways to invoke an app clip. And there are two of them that are a little bit different, which are the recents and the maps, but all of them basically boil down to an URL, and more specifically a prefix. So you don't have to specify like a full URL for your app clip with all of the parameters and things like that. You can just specify a prefix. And what I'm going to show you now is how that's set up using App Store Connect. But it's important for you to know that none of this is required if you just want to develop an app clip locally. This is only required when you're actually going to ship your app clip. So keep that in mind. So here's an example. Let's say my app is milkshaker.app, and I have this URL/product with an ID that I want to take me to an app clip that lets me order that product. The URL I'm going to register is going to be just this prefix. And it can be any prefix you want. And any URL that I encode in a QR code or NFC tag or any of those other methods we talked about is going to trigger my app clip as long as it starts with this prefix. And after the end here, it can be anything. Like it can have / some other thing, or it can have multiple query parameters. And in your app clip, you're going to receive the full URL, including parameters and all of the components. So in App Store Connect, you can set up a new app clip experience after you've submitted an app clip, build with an app clip. And you start by specifying the prefix. As you can see here in this case, in this example, I'm actually using a prefix that's /appclip at the end of my URL. And this is a good way if you want to use specific URLs just for your app clip and not have possible conflicts with existing URLs. And then here you can create your full app clip experience. You can upload the little banner that shows up down here. And also you can localize in multiple languages and define a title and a subtitle for each language. You also get to choose an action and whether your app clip is associated with a specific physical location. Then after that, Apple asks you to say if this is promoting your own app or if this is for a different business. So if your app is the sort of app where you have partners, let's say an app like eBay, for instance, where they have multiple stores within eBay, they could have customized app clip banners for strategic partners that would show up a banner for that specific partner for a given URL prefix. It's still the same app clip, but the introduction to the experience can be different based on the URL. The other piece of the puzzle is the Apple App Site Association file, which is shortened as the AASA file. If you're already doing universal links, then you've probably seen this before. It's the file that goes into this path within your domain, and it's used to confirm to Apple that this particular domain is associated with your app. And this is what it looks like. And this one also includes activity continuation, which is handoff, and also app links, which is universal links. But for the app clip, you just need this particular entry. Has an array of apps, and within that array, you have an item with the bundle identifier of your app clip. And then in your app clip target, you add the associated domains capability, and you add an entry for app clips and the domain. So that's the other piece of the puzzle. But again, none of this is required for you to develop your app clip. This is only required when you actually want to ship it to customers. And here's a detail of what that looks like. All right, so I am ready for the demo here, and this is what we're going to be working on. This is an app called Milkshaker. It's, of course, a fictional app. You can purchase a milkshake using Apple Pay. And in this case, the app also has Siri integration. And it also has an account tab where you can sign in with Apple. And you can also see your order history. So this is the app, and here's what the app clip is going to look like. So the user can scan a QR code for our app clip, and they can go directly to order a specific milkshake. And they can purchase with Apple Pay within the app clip. And also the app clip lets the user register with signing with Apple. And there's also notifications. That's great. So I'm ready for the demo here. Let me just have a look here if we have any questions. Oh, it doesn't look like we have any questions so far. Feel free to use the Q&A feature to send in your questions. And during the demo as well, you can send in your questions. And I'm going to have another break later to possibly answer some questions. So let's get started here. Let me share my screen again with you. And you're seeing here on this window, this is an iPhone I have here where we're going to be running our app clip. This is not required. You can totally do it using the simulator. I'm just using the device here so that I can show you some other things later. So let me show you the project here. We have this Milkshaker app project, and there's the main app target, as you can see here. And I've already created an app clip target following the same steps I've shown during the slides. So I have this Milkshaker target and this app clip target. The first thing I'm going to do here is go into my build settings and make sure my app clip target is selected and search for other Swift flags. This is the flag we want to change, and I'm going to double click my clip column here, and let's define a flag here so that we can conditionally compile code just for our app clip. Something else that's interesting about this particular app is that it uses a framework, this Milkshaker Kit framework. And this Milkshaker Kit framework is what has most of the code for models and some utilities that the app uses. So I'm definitely going to need this framework for my app clip as well. And to do that, I'm going to go into my general tab here. As you can see with my main target, it's already included here, the Milkshaker Kit framework. And in my app clip targets, I'm going to go to the frameworks and embedded content here and add my Milkshaker Kit framework. Awesome, so that's there. And also, there's another thing I need to do here. As you've seen from the video, my main app uses signing with Apple and Apple Pay, and those require capabilities to be set up here. So let's do that. Let me go to my app clip here. And actually, let me show you a fun little trick you can do. You can use Command T to create a new tab. And so I have two tabs here. And in the second tab, I'll select my app clip. And now I can easily compare my capabilities here. And so let's add here the Apple Pay one. And it doesn't have an entitlements file. So let me just create one and check this box here for the merchant. Let's also add sign in with Apple. So that's added. It also has push notifications. And data protection and Siri we're not going to be using for the app clip, so those I can leave off. So hopefully our app clip target builds. That would be a good start. Yes, it does. So let me run and show you where we're starting from here. Beautiful. So we have a blank window. That's awesome. So that's the starting point here. So, all right. So we've added our framework. So that has a lot of the code we're going to need for our app clip. And also we've set up the capabilities and everything is looking good so far. Let's see which code from our main app we're going to need in our app clip. So this is my main app here. And this down here is my app clip. And I've already organized the folders here a little bit. So it has a few things here. I have an app delegate. This is just the standard Xcode app delegate. Also the scene delegate is just the standard one. But in my scene delegate here, I am creating this clip flow controller. And this is just a view controller that's going to be the root view controller of my app clip. And here in the scene will connect to session. I just set that as the root view controller of my UI window. So this is pretty standard iOS app stuff here. And in this case, I'm doing UI in code, but you can totally use Swift UI, or you can also use storyboards. That works perfectly fine. And here in the controllers for my app clip, I have this app clip flow controller here, and it's just a blank UI view controller, as you've seen. Cool, so I'm toggling the sidebar here because now I'm going to look at the code that's in my main app and see what I want to include in my app clip. So I have here for my controllers, I have some accessory controllers, in this case just one, which is this loading view controller. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need that for my app clip, so I'm going to just select it here and check it into my app clip. So now it's going to build both for my app and its app clip. We're also going to want to have product listing. So my product listing flow controller, list view controller, and details here. Those are all going into my app clip. And also we're going to, of course, let the user purchase. So let's check the clip box here. All right, so I have a few of my controllers here added, but I still don't have anything really because I need to actually put something into this clip flow controller here. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and grab something from my app flow controller here. So I'm just going to basically copy my entire root view controller from my app and put it in my app clip. But we're going to be making some changes here. It's complaining about some things it can't find because I have to import milkshaker kit here. So there's this account flow here, and we're not going to have account. There's not going to be an account tab in the app clip. So I can just take this out of here. And the product listing, we do want that. I do not want a tab controller. It's not going to have a tab bar in the app clip. And also here where I install the root controller, let's use our product listing flow instead of using the tab. And the tab is no longer here, so I can remove this. All right, so now we have a clip flow controller that we can use, but this is not going to build yet. In here, we actually need to give the clip flow controller some things. As you can see, I'm using a little bit of dependency injection here. It expects an account store and a product store. So let's instantiate that in our scene delegate here and use a different initializer. I believe both of these can just be instantiated with nothing. I hope so. But I also need to import milkshaker kit here. Awesome. And now our app clip is building again. So let's see what we have from what we've done so far. All right, so looking good. We have a product listing here. I think I can purchase something. Well, I clearly can't because I forgot to copy my resources over. So let's fix that. So this is the type of thing you're going to run into when you are sharing code. In this case, as you can see here, I have an image literal here. And if this resource is not included in my app clip, it's going to crash like it did here. So let's see here. So I have my asset catalog here for my app clip, just like we do for an app. And as you can see, it's completely empty. Let's go to our asset catalog from our main app. And I'm actually just going to copy these over and delete the ones that are here. And now, as you can see, I'm using the same icon as the app for the app clip. That's perfectly fine. You can use a different one if you want to. And also there's this glyph, which is what was causing our app clip to crash. So let's see if this works now. Let's pick one here. And there you go. Success. I am able to purchase things. So now before I move into the more complete app clip, I see that you have some questions here. And since we didn't have any in the previous break, I think it's good that we answer some now. Oh, awesome questions here. So we have a question here from Maris. And by the way, sorry if I mispronounce your names. And the question is the app clip limited to contain only one app clip, or is it possible to create multiple different app clips for one app? That's a great question. So you can have just one app clip per app, but what you can do is you can vary what you show in your app clip depending on the URL that was used to launch it. So as I've shown you before, you can have multiple URL prefixes, or you can have just one URL prefix. And when you do that, you can say install a different root view controller when you launch your app clip given a different URL. So you can't, but you can have the same effect with different URLs basically. And I'm going to show you briefly later with the demo how you can have the URL and actually get the URL from the app clip from the QR code or from the NFC tag. Also, another question from Majd, and it's, is there a review process for app clips when submitted to App Store Connect? And if it's possible to publish app clips, so experiences and URL variants after the app is live? Amazing question. So when you submit your app, you're going to submit your app clip with your app. So there's no separate submission for the app clip, but the App Store review team is going to review your app clip as well. And when you submit your app with an app clip, you can give them a URL that triggers your app clip, and they'll be able to do that. There's also another flow for test flight. So for test flight, if you want your test flight users to be able to use your app clips, when you configure a release on test flight, you can register in test flight some demo links basically, and within test flight, the user will see some links. I actually think I can show you that. I have test flight here on my demo device. This was not on the script, but I think it's a good thing to show you. So I'm going to launch test flight here and grab an app which has an app clip so that you can see what that looks like. All right, so let me share here. So you can see here on my device, I have my app, Chibi Studio, and it has this app clips part down here. And there's this test button. So if I tap it, it's going to launch my app clip. And this is all things you can configure in App Store Connect when you're creating your test flight release. But yeah, so the app clip does go through review with your app. And I've actually had a release rejected before because of a crash in my app clip. So they are indeed reviewing your app clip. Question from Marcel here. Is it possible to share a URL template for an app link and an app clip? So for instance, in my full app, the link will open the product page, and if the user has not installed the app, it will open the app clip instead. That is a great question, and yes, that is possible. So you can use the same, if you're already using universal links, it's perfectly possible for you to use the same links for both the app links and the app clip. And in fact, that is encouraged because for, let's say, for instance, my example here with the Milkshaker app, I have this link that takes the user to a specific product. Let's say they use the app clip, they like it, and they install the app. You want that link to keep working, right? So, and if they scan the QR code and they already have the app installed, then it's going to take them to the full app instead of the app clip. So that is perfectly possible, and it's actually a really good idea for you to do that because you want those links to keep working. Also, another question from Marcel, is it possible to download or create an image or video and add it to the photo library through an app clip? That is perfectly possible. So photo library is not one of those things that you can't access from an app clip. There are very few things you can't, such as CloudKit that I mentioned. So yeah, you can render video, you can do pretty much whatever you want, as long as you can fit it within that 10 megabyte limit. Also, great question from Frederick. And the question is, is the app clip uninstalled when the app is installed? And that is correct. Yeah, the answer is yes. So your app is going to replace your app clip. So they're mutually exclusive. So you can't have both at the same time. Even when you do it through Xcode, if you run the app from Xcode and you have the app clip installed from Xcode, the app is going to replace the app clip. So yeah, you're always going to only have the app clip or the app installed, never both at the same time. Another great question here from Melissa, and the question is there a way for the app clip preview image and text to be dynamic, or does it have to be set only once in iTunes Connect? So they can't be fully dynamic because you do have to register each one, but you can have a little bit of dynamism. I don't know if that's the correct word, but you can if you register different URL prefixes. And you can be as specific as you want in your URL prefixes. It is a pain, of course, because you have to register each one. But that's where you can, if you have like multiple experiences and you want to have a different introduction for each one, you can totally do that. Unfortunately, that has to be done manually in App Store Connect for now. But I think I have already filed the feedback about that, and I think many people already did as well. So it's very likely that in the near future, Apple will introduce a more automated way for us to do that. Very good question. Question from Guillaume, and he wants to know if I have tried to handle payment with something else other than Apple Pay, which might require to import a third-party library such as Stripe. So I haven't personally done this, but there's nothing about app clips that requires you to use Apple Pay. It's not like it's not against the guidelines or anything. So the only thing that can be an issue there is if, say, Stripe's SDK already puts you over the 10 megabyte limit, then that's a problem. And that's something I think SDK vendors are going to have to figure out as well if they want their SDKs to be app clip friendly. But yeah, you can totally use something else. You can use your own backends, whatever you want, as long as, of course, you can fit it within those 10 megabytes. Great question from Sasha. And I'm going to show you right after this question. With the _xc appclip URL as an environment variable, you can test the appclip URL being launched, and it works fine for the appclip scheme, but it's not working in the main app scheme. And they're asking if I have a similar experience and suggestions on how to test the same link between your app clip and your main app. So this is a very common issue that people have. And unfortunately, when you use this special environment variable, and let me actually share my screen here and I'll do the answer while we see it here. So if I go here into my product scheme, edit scheme in my app clip, as you can see here, I have this _xc appclip URL. And this is an environment variable that when I enable this, it's going to simulate my app clip being launched from a QR code or app banner or whatever that had this URL. So it's going to do all of the callbacks and everything like that, so you can test it. But if I put the same environment variable in my main app scheme, that's not going to work. And the way I solve that in my apps is to have a secondary option to use during development. And of course, it's not going to be the same as testing the full flow of getting the user activity and things like that. But as an alternative, what I do is I use an argument. So let me actually show you here how you can do that. So let's say I want to be able to handle my custom link in my main app. So I have selected my main app target here. What you can do is you can go again into product scheme, edit scheme, and you can add, as you can see, I already have one here. You can add an argument. So let's add an argument here, and I like to prefix them for my app just in case. So let's call it MSK test URL, and then I can put an URL in here, milkshaker.app/product ? ID 123. So this is an argument that's going to be passed to my app when I launch it through Xcode. In my code, I'm going to copy the name here without the little dash here. In my app code, I can go into my app delegate here. And in my application that finished launching, for instance, I can use user defaults. So I can get my user defaults, standards, string, not string array, string for key. And so this is what you can do. And hopefully I can actually run it here and show you that it works. So you can do this type of thing. And I actually use this all the time for all sorts of things. And yeah, as you can see here, I got my test URL here. And if you don't want it anymore, you can go to that same screen and just uncheck this. So this is extremely useful. Like all my apps have a huge list of arguments here that I can just enable or disable. And what you would do here is you would call into your deep link handling code, basically. So you would bypass the whole user activity stuff. And this is the way I like to do it. But of course, you could also use an environment variable and read it from process info. I just like using the arguments because I think it's a little bit more clean, that you can use user defaults. Yeah, so this is a cool little trick you can use for many things. And one of them is actually testing this stuff. So now that we've gone through the very basics here, I am going to do a little cooking show trick here and actually grab another branch of my project, and I want to show you some other more intricate things we can do. Let me just clean this up here. There you go. All right. So this is another branch, and in this branch I have some more advanced app clip stuff to show you. So one of the things I mentioned during my initial demo was that my app also includes Siri intents, because this was actually the story of the sample apps that I created it to demonstrate how to integrate with intents and shortcuts. But our app clip can't do any of that stuff. One of the things app clips can't have is extensions. So you can't have like a widget in your app clip. That's not possible. And so my intent extensions are not included in my app clip. But of course, the code that calls into that, if I can search here for intent, for instance, so you can see such as this purchase flow controller. This is included in both my main target and my app clip target. And it imports the intent UI framework, but I don't want that in my app clip. So in this case, I'm using that flag that we created, and I'm saying, if not app clip, then include this code. And I actually have some other instances of that here. So there's this register purchase suggestion, which uses the IN shortcut class, and this is also excluded from the app clip. This donate interaction here also excludes code from the app clip. So this is one way for you to quickly share code between your app and your app clip without having to change it too much. Of course, you are adding all of this into your code, which doesn't look particularly appealing, I might say, but this is, of course, something you can do in the beginning, and famous last words, you can refactor it later and actually abstract things. So one instance of what could be done in this case is you could, for instance, have all of this intent stuff be a separate thing, so a separate class, and you could pass it in as a protocol here. So you could have like an intent support thing that's an intent support protocol, for instance. And inside this protocol, you would have all of this stuff handling intents. And in your app clip, you could just pass in like a stub. So something that when it's running in your app clip does nothing. And that's perfectly fine. And it will be better, in my opinion, than having all of this if, pound if, not app clip. But of course, when you're just getting started with your app clip, you don't want to have to completely refactor your entire code to deal with the app clip. So this is a valid solution. Or if you have smaller pieces of code you want to share and you don't want to necessarily re-architect things too much. Let me show you something else here. Let's go back to our app clip targets. And I'm going to go again into the same window we were before. And we have here these environment variables. This comes pre-populated for you when you create an app clip. And I have put in here this long URL that's basically a URL that's going to go directly into a product within my app. So I'm looking at my device here, sorry for that. So let's go here and run our app clip and see what happens. So now when I ran my app clip, instead of going to the product list, which is before here, it went directly into the product page for that product. Let me show you how that works. So let's look at the clip target again. And I have here my scene delegate. And another thing that people tend to ask a lot is whether you're required to use the new scene delegate stuff for app clips, and the answer is no. You can not use the scene APIs and just use the app delegate directly. So that's also good to know. And in here, as you can see, when I get this callback here, scene will connect to session options. There's this connection options user activities array, and in this case, I'm only getting the first one. And this is where you'll find the user activity that includes your app clip URL in there. If you want to see this more clearly, let me actually put a breakpoint in here and see what happens. So as you can see, we get here from the connection options user activities. So there's one user activity there. Okay, this is kind of weird, but I'm increasing the font here. So you'll see here we have a user activities array, and I can print out here the first element, and I can get from it a web page URL. There you go. So it got us the URL that we use. And this is the one that's described in here. Let me go back to the normal font size here. All right. Another thing I would like to show you is how you can share data between your app clip and your app. So let me run this once again. And I can purchase this here. And as you can see, I can also sign in with Apple in my app clip. And I'm going to sign in here. All right, so now I'm signed in with my app clip, but I still only have my app clip. So you can see even at the top here that the icon has this little dashed line around it. That means it's an app clip. But let's simulate now what happens if the user from my app clip installs my app, and you can do that through Xcode. So back in Xcode, I'm going to stop my app clip here and select my main app targets. So this is pretty much the same that will happen if a user has your app clip and then they install your app. So I'm going to launch the main app here. And we'll see appear on device. And now I have my app here. But if I go here into the Accounts tab, you can see that I'm already logged in, and I can already see the order I placed in the app clip. So that's something you can do. So the user has a seamless experience from the app clip to the app. And let's see how that's done. So if I go into my app's capabilities here, you can see that I've added this app groups capability. And I have a group named group and a long reverse DNS here. And this app group will let me share data between my app and my app clip, because when the user goes from the app clip to the app group stays around. It doesn't stay around if the user deletes the app clip. So if they delete the app clip, like they go into settings and delete it, then it's gone. Then it's not gonna move over. But if the user goes through the more common flow of using the app clip, then installing the app group is gonna stick around. And in my app clip, I have the same app groups capability with, of course, the same app group checked in here. And let me show you here the code that deals with that. It's here in Account Star, I believe. So as you can see here, my Account Star has an instance of user defaults. And instead of using the standard user defaults, I'm using this extension that I made, which I called MSK App Group. So if I go into here, you can see that I am instantiating my user defaults with the suite name and the same name from my app's capabilities. And in case it fails for whatever reason, I've never seen this happen, I just assert just so I can catch it during debug. So say I forgot to add the capability and this returns nil, I will receive an assertion failure. And that's basically it. So by using an app group, I can get my app clip and my app to share data. And the app group, it can be used not only with user defaults, but it can also be used with keychain, which would be the correct thing to use in this case here. But since it's a demo, I'm not using the keychain. But you can also share keychain items for security sensitive stuff, such as a user authentication token or something like that. And you can also use it to store files on the file system. So you can use the file manager API to ask for a shared folder for your app group. And that way you can actually store little files in there, or like a core data database or something else. So that's perfectly viable to do with app clips and your app. Another thing I want to do, and I believe actually we have two more things in the demo here. So I want to show you how you can test invoking your app clip on device. So let me stop my main app here, and I'm actually going to delete the app from device. And let's install our app clip again. And it's very important that the app clip is installed for this next step to work. So as you can see here, I have my app clip again. And to save some time here, I have already set this up. So if you go into settings for your development device, there are the developer settings here. And down here, you can see there's this local experiences option for app clips. And here you can go into register local experience and create, it's basically replacing what you do in App Store Connect, just local for your device for your own testing. And let me show you here my order milkshake experience. As you can see, I have my URL prefix here. This is the thing that's going to be encoded in my QR code or in my NFC tag or something else. I also have here the bundle ID for my app clip, gave it a title, a subtitle, an action, and also gave it a little banner there, which you can choose from the pictures on your phone. So with this setup, we have the app clip installed from Xcode and we have the local experience registered. I can grab QR codes, which I have prepared earlier. So this QR code looks kind of funky. I used the site name QR Code Monkey to set it up, and they have lots of customization options. So if you want to make some fun QR codes for your app clips, you can use QR Code Monkey. On my device here, I'm going to use this QR code camera option here. And this is not here by default, but you can get it from the control center options. And let's scan the QR code here. And there you go. So it's using our local experience. And if I tap open here, it goes into my app clip. And there's this little banner here that shows that it's powered by the Milkshaker app. All right, one last thing in this demo, I want to show you how you can check the size of your app clip. So during development, if you're running your app clip from Xcode, the 10 megabyte limit is not enforced. So it's not going to throw any errors or anything and say, hey, your app clip is over 10 megabytes. No, you can have a 1 gigabyte app clip during development and it's going to be fine. But when you actually want to submit to the App Store, before doing that, it's good that you check your size to see if it's within the limit. So I'm going to select my main app target here. That's very important that it's the main app target, and going to Products, Archive. So this is the normal flow we go through when we are going to submit an app to the App Store or export an ad hoc build or something like that. But I'm going to show you what you're going to have to do to be able to check your app clip size. So it's archiving here, and hopefully it will be done very quickly. Also, please keep sending in your questions. We have one more round. So here we have our build. It's the Milkshaker app, version 1.0, build 2. And I'm going to pick the distribute app here. And instead of App Store Connect, we're going to choose ad hoc. And as you can see here, it's asking me if I want to export my Milkshaker app or my app clip. And this is only for ad hoc builds. When you submit to the App Store, you're going to submit both at the same time. So this is only for ad hoc builds because we want to check the size. So I'm going to pick app clip and choose next. And it's going to process my archive. And here it's going to offer me some options for app thinning. And for app thinning, you're going to select all compatible device variants. And I'm going to leave rebuild from bitcode check just so that it's as close as possible to what the App Store is going to do to my app. We can leave it in automatic. And now this is going to take a few moments. So let me have a look at the questions again. And I'm looking at your questions here. So there's a question from Cesar here. And do you know if it's possible to just showcase your app clip in the app clip, something more like 3 or 4 views showing the benefits of using the app and then a link to download? So this is an interesting question. I would suggest you try to at least have one feature of your app that people can actually try out in the app clip. I think if it's just kind of like an advertisement for your app, maybe Apple is not going to like it and it might be rejected. So I think that's not the idea. Of course, the idea is to showcase your app, but showcase it in a way that has at least meaningful usefulness or entertainment value for your users. And I'll show you my app clip for my app later, so maybe that can serve as inspiration. But yeah, very good question. So as you can see here, I have the build here processed, and I can export it here. And let's just save it to the desktop and open this folder here. So within this folder, you're going to have a bunch of stuff, but what you're going to look at is this app thinning size report. This is the important bit of information here. So this app thinning size report is going to have a bunch of stuff, but you're really looking for here this universal one, which is usually the last one. And here you can see app plus on-demand resources size, 1.7 megabytes uncompressed. This right here is what you're going to be looking at. So this is the important number. If this number here is above 10 megabytes, then you have more work to do. So this is what you want to do. And for my app that I mentioned, I went through several builds until I finally managed to fit all of that within the limits. So to continue answer the previous question about the showcasing an app with your app clip, I'm actually going to show you the app clip for my app here. And I'm going to use the test flight option. So I tap that test button there and it's downloading my app clip, which should be fairly fast. There you go. And since this is test flight, there's this little from the developer thing with the release notes. So here is this is my app, Chibi Studio, and this is its app clip. And the experience we wanted to include here was just the experience of actually making a little character, which you can do by picking here from different items and things like that. But I'm going to use the random thing here to generate some random ones. Yeah, so it was a big challenge because we have a lot of assets, as you can see. So we had to really filter down only like the essentials. And we also have a bunch of premium content in the app. So of course, none of the premium content is included because there are no in-app purchases in the app clip. In the normal app, you have up here in this corner here, and up here, instead of being shared, it's a done button, which saves this character to your library, and there's a cancel button up there. But in this case, we only have the share here, and then we can share and copy, and it shows you a little thing here. And in this case, as you can see, it shows a banner offering you to install the full app. And that's it. So after you do this, you can, of course, keep using the app clip and creating more characters. But if you download the app from the banner that pops up and then you launch the app, this little character you made in here is going to be on your library. And that's using app groups, as I've shown you. So that's the end of that demo. We have one more to go, which is how to use Bitrise to use Bitrise's CI for your app clip as well. And let me see some more questions here. So Gustavo asked, can you render a web view inside the app clip? And the answer is yes, as you can totally do that. You can have a web view. Of course, the same thing applies to normal apps. Like Apple doesn't want an app to just be a web view. But if you use a web view as part of your app for like displaying some rich content in there, I don't think that's an issue. You can use that perfectly fine. Robert asks if there are any tips about what specific things there have to be done to be able to configure the app clip for code signing, and if there are any bottlenecks. So Robert, I think the main thing you need to be careful about is which capabilities you need in your app clip. So if you're using things such as push notification, signing with Apple, make sure that you have those capabilities in your app clip. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble at runtime. In terms of actual code signing, it's the same as a regular app, and it doesn't affect your main app. So you will have your own provisioning profile for the app clip. And actually, you're going to see here with the Bitrise part of the demo that I have exported separately the code signature and the provisioning profile. Well, it actually uses the same certificate for all of my targets, but the provisioning profile is going to be different for your app clip. But as long as you keep that in mind and remember that you have this additional target with its own signing, then it's going to be fine. And within Xcode, you can keep using automatic code signing. And of course, for your CI, you're going to use manual code signing and your own provisioning profile. Amazing question from Alex. Alex wants to know if there are any hardware requirements, for example, if they are not going to work on iPhone 10, 10R or earlier. So the short answer is no. So app clips, any device that runs iOS 14 can run app clips. So if your device supports iOS 14, it supports app clips. There are a few limitations as to which trigger methods work on each device. So for example, I show you here how to use the QR code. That's going to work for every device. That's the most accessible way for using app clips. But for NFC tags, the first device, if I'm remembering correctly, that supports scanning NFC tags in the background is the iPhone XS and the iPhone XR. So any device after, on or after XR and XS, you can just take your device and tap an NFC tag with an app clip, and it's going to pop up the app clip banner. But if it's before then, if it's like an iPhone 7, 8, or 10, and you want to use an NFC tag for the app clip, you have to go into Control Center, and there's a little NFC tag option there that you can add, and you can do it through that. So that's because those devices, they don't support NFC scanning in the background. That's the limitation that prevents this from working. But in general, any device that runs iOS 14 will be able to use your app clip. There's a question here from Artem, and the question is it possible to share a direct link in iMessage, which will show an app clip banner directly when tapped without going through a website? Yes, it is. Kinda, I would say, because if you share a link on iMessage, that's an app clip, you're the recipient and yourself, of course, you're going to see a little preview window of the app, and there's going to be a button in the preview that lets you open the app clip. But I believe, and I'm sorry, I don't remember at the top of my head if this is the case, but I think if you just tap the message, it will just open the link. I'm not sure though, but yes, if you send a link to an app clip on iMessage, the user will see an option to open the app clip directly. Maris asks, is it possible to create UI tests for the app clip? And if it is possible, are there any restrictions to that, or is it the same as for a normal iOS app? So that's where the beauty of the fact that app clips are just apps comes in. You can do UI tests. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. You can, there are no limitations. So yeah, it's just like an app. You can use UI tests, unit tests, integration tests. You can do screenshot testing if you want to. All of that stuff, it works fine with app clips. And that's because, as I mentioned, app clips are just apps and not like a weird type of extension or something like that. So thanks for the question. Dan asks if there are any special considerations for localization with app clips. I think the only thing you have to keep in mind is when you are configuring your app clip card in iTunes Connect, make sure that you include the localized titles and subtitles for each region. But other than that, I think also don't include anything that's not localizable in your banner image for the app clip, because I believe that one is not localizable in App Store Connect. So you can only have one banner image, but you can configure your app clip your app clip trigger to have a different title depending on localization. But in terms of the app itself, it's just like a regular iOS app. And you can, of course, share your strings files between your app and your app clip. A question from Panteli is really putting me on the spot here, that I have an app clip that's living out there in the wild. If I have any numbers proving it's worth the effort. So, of course, I can only talk from my own experience, and this is, your mileage may vary, as they say. And also, there's something about my particular app clip that's, it's not an app that's very like it's not the type of app that Apple was expecting to use an app clip, I think, because I think what Apple is looking for, or at least their idea for app clips, was for apps that users use like for once and don't use later, like for a parking space, for instance. You have to download an app. Instead of using an app, you can just pay for your parking, and then the app clip goes away after 30 days, and that's it. So I'm not sure. I can't say for those types of apps. For my app, what I can say is that it brought a lot of attention to the app because of the app clip. It's been shared around on Twitter. I think he even showed up in like a New York Times or maybe it was a Forbes article. I don't remember which media outlet, but people are enjoying using the app clip. And since this app, in this case, is all about fun, people are having fun. And I have noticed a slight increase in app downloads and in-app purchases after releasing the app clip, but I don't have any sophisticated analytics where I can say for sure that it was the app clip that caused that. But I do believe that it had a big play into that. Thanks for the question. But again, like this is the type of thing that's each developer or each company is going to have to see for themselves. And unfortunately, it's very hard to know if it's going to be worth it until you actually try. So unfortunately, if you try and it ends up not being worth it, oh well, right? All right, so let's go here again to the last demo of this workshop, and this is using Bitrise. So I'm here in my Bitrise dashboard, and this milkshaker app is already on my GitHub. So let's add it here. It's going to be a private app. And I'm going to use, there it is, milkshaker. I'm going to let Bitrise do the hard work for me here. And I have a branch here that I have prepared. So let me just show you here what I had to do in terms of my project for the CI. It's nothing major. In my signing and capabilities here, for my release configuration, I am using manual signing, and I have a specific provisioning profile that I have created for Bitrise, and it's selected here. And I've done the same for my intents extension, which is included in my app targets. It's also using manual signing, and this is only for the release build, so it doesn't affect debug builds. And also for my app clip, I also have a custom provisioning profile only for the release build, just so that I can give Bitrise my provisioning profiles and it will be able to do that. And I can do that without even having to integrate App Store Connect or anything. So let me grab the name of this branch here. This is the branch we're going to be building. And now Bitrise is analyzing my repo to see what type of project they're dealing with. And we'll be able to customize the configuration later. So let's wait for it to finish detecting what type of app this is. And as you can see here, Bitrise has detected that this is an iOS app. And it's asking me what is the scheme that I want to build. And you might think you want to select clip here, but we're not going to select clip. We're going to select the main app target, because we're going to be building both our app clip and our app target through the same process. And this is if you want to distribute the app to the App Store, which is the flow that I'm going to show you here. So for your CI to actually prepare an IPA file that you can submit to the App Store. So here for the export method, we're going to select App Store. I'm going to click Edit here and change one of the settings, because as you can see here for the iOS stack, it wants to use Xcode 11.7, but we actually need a later version of Xcode for app clips to work. So I'm going to go Edit here and select the latest Xcode, which is the same one I'm using on my machine here. So that's correct. Let's save the configuration. And this is fine. And also I'm going to let Bitrise create a webhook for me, so that every time I push to this repo, it's going to make a build for me. All right, so now Bitrise has kicked off our first build, but this first build, it's not going to work because we don't have our provisioning setup. So I'm actually going to just stop this build here. So we're going to stop this one because this one doesn't have our configuration fully set up yet. And I'm going to go back into my Bitrise project here, and we're going to do a little change to our workflow in order to be able to build this for the App Store. So it's loading my workflows here. And in this case, we only have this one workflow. I'm going to go into the code signing tab, our favorite thing as iOS developers, right? And I also have a folder here that I prepared earlier. So I went into my keychain and I exported my certificate and my private key with keychain. And also from Xcode, I have exported my provisioning profiles. And you can also do it through the developer portal. And as you can see here, I have three. I have one for my app clip, one for my Bitrise distribution of my main app, and one for the intents extension that's in my main app. So let's add my certificate here. And also let's add our provisioning profiles. As you can see, it's already recognized my certificate. It doesn't have a password. You should absolutely have one for yours. So make sure you do that. So all of our provisioning settings are now correct. So now I can go back into my project and we can actually start a build. And this time the build is going to work because I have the configuration correctly. And it's using the branch I have set up earlier. And now it's going to build my app with my app clip. So this is going to take a while, of course, because it has to set up the environment and build our app. But after Bitrise has finished, you can, of course, set up several types of automations. You can have it uploaded to App Store Connect automatically and put it on test flight for you. You can have it send emails, send a message through Slack or something else. You can just download the IPA. And what's important to know here, and I can show you from this IPA we've exported earlier. Well, actually, I can't show you because this is just the app clip. But when Bitrise builds your main app targets, as you can see here, the app clip target is a dependency of the main app target. So when Bitrise builds your app, it's going to build the app clip with it. And when you submit this IPA to App Store Connect, the App Store machinery is going to take it apart and take your app clip and take your app and separate those on their backend. So when a user downloads your app, they're not going to be downloading your app clip with it. Like it's not going to be in there. It's just something that you have to do so that App Store Connect can find your app clip. All right, so that was the demo for using Bitrise. Let me see here. So for last round of questions, let's see if we have other questions here. There's a question from Maris here. Is it possible to limit an app clip to use only one specific way of triggering it? For example, only NFC tag. That's a great question. I don't think that's possible. Maybe there's something you can do to achieve that, but I am not aware of a method that will allow you to do that. So I don't think that's possible, unfortunately. There's a question from Diego here, and he wants to know if I've had any issues testing signing with Apple, because he is always running into failures, and even the App Store apps that he's been trying are having failures with signing with Apple. this looks like it might be a problem with your account, maybe, because you're also having this problem with regular apps and not just the apps you're trying yourself. What I can say about signing with Apple is never test it on the simulator. Like, I've never been able to make it work on iOS simulator, so test it on a device. And I've also never been able to use the Sandbox account for signing with Apple. Anytime I try to use a Sandbox account, it doesn't work. So I always end up using real accounts. So yeah, definitely Apple has some work to do in getting signing with Apple to work more reliably, especially during testing. Another great question here from Maris. Does Apple provide any metrics about app clip usage? And the answer is unfortunately not. Me and also other developers have already filed feedback for Apple in order for them to add some metrics to App Store Connect about app clip usage. So yeah, that would be really great if they did that. What you can do, of course, is you can have your own analytics, preferably first-party solution. So some simple backend that you have where you can just log the sessions for your app clip. I haven't done that for my app clip, and I kind of regret not having done that because I would really love to know how many people are using it and how many sessions we have. Yeah, it is a shame that Apple is not offering that so far, but I hope that this will be available sooner rather than later. Robert is asking if you have to configure push notifications separately from the main app for app clips. This is a really good question because there is a little difference, and it's in how you send a remote push notification. So when you send a remote push notification, and I'm not going to remember the exact names of the keys here, but if you check Apple's documentation, they do tell you how to do that. You have to specify the bundle ID of the app that's going to receive the notification. And for the app clip specifically, when you send a push notification for your app clip, you still use the bundle ID of your app, but there's another key you need to add to the push payload for specifying that it's for your app clip. So that's what you have to do. But in terms of the key that you're going to use or the certificate you're going to use to send the push notification or which Apple API you're going to call, that's all the same. It's just that the actual push payload itself has one more key you need to include for your app clip. All right, it looks like we're over with the questions. Thank you so much for attending this workshop. I had a lot of fun showing you this. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about app clips. So yeah, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gui, for this amazing hour and a half. I can see from all the questions that it's been really enjoyed. Thank you for taking. We had over 25 questions, a bunch of amazing people attending. So thank you so much for this. Would you like to share your Twitter handle again or any other links that you'd like the audience to know about?
Absolutely. So I'm on Twitter @_inside, and let me put some links there for you on the chat. I'm grabbing here I'm grabbing here my link to the repo, so directly to the branch that is basically where you can start with your app clip if you want to try and redo what I've done here. There are some other branches in there you can check out with more code. There's an app clip branch with the complete app clip if you want to cheat a little bit and copy some code from there. And my Twitter is this one right here. Typing URLs is always fun. There you go.
Thank you so much for everyone, especially to you. And just a kind reminder, if you want to also follow us on Twitter, if you want to check out other webinars. You can know about that on our webinar page as well. So we would like to keep everyone up to date and provide similar amazing webinars in the future as well. So thank you very much for attending and have a lovely evening.